So it's misfiring really badly. You can hear it better if I rev it. What's going on, guys? Today the E30 got a misfire, so I'm going to head to Advanced Auto and pick up a cap and rotor. Okay, so just picked up a new cap and rotor from Advanced Auto. And
got me open balance till the morning with my homies. Tell them where we going. Got a girl, she wanna stop. Used to work, used to dance and test it. Now she in the house. Oh my God.
okay, so now you got your new cap and rotor, and you have to take off your old cap. There are 3 8mm bolts. It'll be difficult to see with this, but there's 3. There's one in the front and then one on either side at the back. It's difficult to get to, but you can do it without removing the fan or radiator. You just need a 1/4 inch drive. So once you get all those bolts loose, the cap will literally just basically fall out. So all you have to do after that is remove it. And a little bit of wiggling will get it right out of there. Now you can see that's the old one right there. So now that you got the cap loose, I would go ahead and just remove all 3 of these screws that are still in the cap. So just spin them all the way off by hand. If you removed them when you took the cap off originally, then you wouldn't have to do it, but I just backed mine out enough to where I could get the cap off. Okay, and now that you got that one free, I would take your new one and just swap all the plugs where they belong on the new cap so that you don't misplace anything. So just take one off, stick it on here, and so on and so forth. And now that I swapped them over, you can see the difference between, this is the old one right here, and look at all the points that are all worn down, and then that's the brand new one that I just put in. Alright, so now the next part of this whole process is obviously to change the rotor, which is right in there. And I believe it's 3 3mm Allen keys, so just take those off and then put the new one on. So go ahead and get a 3mm Allen and break all 3 of those loose. Okay, so here's the new rotor, and then this is the old one. If you look at the metal on it, it's ground like all the way down flat, has almost nothing sticking up, and this new one actually has a lip. Now you just go ahead and put the new one on. So same thing as removal, just tighten all 3 of these back in, and then snug them all up with a 3mm Allen key. So now you got your new rotor in, and there's your new cap. Just make sure you put that cover back on the cap, and you'll do that by just removing all 3 of the 8mm bolts, putting the cap on, and then putting them back. Now that you got everything back together and you double checked that it was tight, you're just going to have to go ahead and stuff the cap back in there and line up the bolts and tighten them in. Okay, so once you get that back in, you'll just rotate this until it lines up with the holes for the bolts, and then you'll start one of them in there, and then you're good to just tighten down all 3 of their 8mm. Okay, so now you have your new cap and rotor on, and everything is tight. So you're done with the cap and rotor portion of this, but I'm going to go ahead and do the spark plugs since I'm doing all the rest of the ignition system anyway. And to remove the spark plugs, just pull by the boot and they'll pop off. Okay, so now the only different thing about changing spark plugs on these cars are that the leads go directly on the plug itself, not this like cap that goes over it. So on most plugs you can grab it with a plier and hold it with a wrench, and then you just spin it off. It'll just unscrew. Okay, and then once you break it free with the pliers, you can just spin it all the way off, and then you just get the end, and you don't need this little cap thing. Okay, so now you'll see I removed the caps on all 6, and then I'm going to double check the gap, and then I'll put them all in. All those spark plugs are a 5/8 normal spark plug socket. So just break them free and then spin them out by hand. Okay, so I got all the spark plugs out and I'm about to gap the new ones to go back in, but I can't find a spark plug gauge, so before anything I'm going to run out and go get one of those. Okay, I just got to AutoZone and I'm going to pick up the spark plug gauge that I missed. Alright, so I just got the feeler gauge. So I just went ahead and bought 3 of them so that I don't run into this issue again. Okay, so I gapped all the plugs to 0.030, which is the spec for these cars, and now I'm just going to put them back in. Okay, so now that you ran them in all by hand, just go ahead and tighten them down. The torque spec is 21 foot-pounds, but if you don't have a torque wrench, just make them tight. Now that you got all those tightened, just go ahead and take each of the boots and stick it in. Okay, and that should be it, so I'm going to fire it up and make sure everything's good. everything's good now. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like for more.
You were the shadow to my light. Did you feel us? Another star, you fade away. Afraid our aim is out of sight. Wanna see us